Outside the Line starts right now.
The left fielder, number 34, Bryce Harper.
Baseball's unique code was on display recently when the Phillies' Cole Hamels took it upon himself to indoctrinate the Nats' highly talented, can't-miss teenage phenom Bryce Harper. Hamels plunked him.
Hamels offering. Inside and hit him in the back.
Harper had the ultimate revenge. He stole home.
He's coming home.
And Hamels earned a suspension by admitting he hit Harper to remind Harper about baseball's pecking order. And then you have two of the best players in Major League Baseball who last night were the central figures in a curious drama. Reigning National League MVP Ryan Braun and New York Mets All-Star third baseman David Wright. And the at-bat right skipper would not let him take.
In this game, there are unwritten rules. And one of the unwritten rules is you hit my guy, I'm hitting your guy. They're not hitting my guy tonight.
Today outside the lines, baseball, the code, and plunking batters.
And now, reporting for Outside the Lines, Bob Lee.
The game that is played without a clock is played with a code. Now, you cannot find it in the official rules of baseball, but it's right there in the heart and mind of every baseball guy with simple-to-understand staples of frontier justice. Protect your teammates and also protect your team's honor. Hit my guy, I'm going to hit yours, and if we're smart, we're going to leave it all just right at that. The wisdom of dispensing ad hoc judicial statements with 90-mile-an-hour-plus baseballs can be debated, but the reality cannot. And last night, the ageless code was given a new wrinkle when a manager stepped in to stop the proceedings before the retaliation moved up a notch.
Whacked in the air deep to left. Baxter turns. This ball is gone. Creamed it to left center field. It is now 8-0 Milwaukee. And here's Ryan Braun. He's hit right in the middle of the back. And Carrasco is going to be thrown out of here. Gary Darling says, no, you don't. You're gone.
Why not a warning, though? There's no bad blood here, and even if he was throwing it Braun, that's only the way they played baseball for 143 years professionally.
Interesting development here as we go to the bottom of the seventh inning. David Wright is due to lead off in the bottom of the seventh. He is not going to bat here, and I think we can pretty much understand what's going on here in the dugout.
Yeah, he's very angry. The reason is that Terry Collins take him out of the game because he doesn't want retaliation from Greinke.
In this game, there are unwritten rules. And one of the unwritten rules is you hit my guy, I'm hitting your guy. They're not hitting my guy tonight. I'm not exposing him to being hit. He said, if anybody gets hit, I want it to be me. And I said, I'm sorry, it isn't going to be you. They're not going to hit Jordani Valdespin. But they will hit David. If they're going to retaliate, they're going to hit David Wright. And that ain't happening tonight.
He's got to make the move that he thinks is best for the team, and he obviously did that. And, you know, whether I agree with it or disagree with it, you know, I respect him. You know, I've loved playing for him. You know, you get caught up in the moment, and, you know, things probably looked a lot worse than they really were. And, you know, we go on from here.
Ooh, and the first pitch hits him right in the back. I think it hit him in the wallet. And Cole Hamels just got hit. So Hamels hits Bryce Harper with his first pitch in the bottom of the first inning, and now Jordan Zimmerman hits Cole Hamels with his first pitch as Hamels squared to bunt.
Both Bryce Harper and Cole Hamels professionally just taking it and taking their base.
Cole Hamels of the Phils subsequently earning a 5-game suspension for bluntly and honestly admitting that he hit Bryce Harper, and apparently just on general principle. If the kid on the headlines and the expectations, and so duck. Last night's Brewers-Mets game was more straightforward and traditional. Home run, hit the best opposing batter, and expect the same in return. Terry Collins' decision to step in, well, ESPN MLB analyst John Kruk discussed it this morning with Mike Greenberg on the Mike and Mike radio program.
What did you think of the way Collins handled that?
Perfectly. To be very honest with you, I thought he handled it perfectly. And David Wright did too. David Wright, you know, if I'm going to be the leader of this team and lead these young kids, you know, into the future, then I want to be the guy that gets hit. I want to be the stand-up guy. that goes in there and takes the punishment for what one of our guys did. But what Terry Collins did was also equally as smart, because in an 8-0 game, Ron Renicky can bring in anyone he wants out of the bullpen. His hardest throwing guy can come in. And, you know, yes, you are risking injury to David Wright, and they can't afford to lose him if they want to be competitive. I understand Terry's point. I understand Alm's point. But, you know, what Terry's also saying is this. You know, yeah, sinker, Carrasco said a sinker just got away from him, you know, and it rode high. Okay, do you want to believe him? You not want to believe him. But Terry Collins basically said, I don't believe him.
Right.
Because that's why I didn't send my guy up. If I thought it was unintentional and it was an accident, I would have sent my guy up there. But I ain't playing it that way. I don't see it that way. Too much coincidence is going into this. Weeks homer, first pitch, Braun gets drilled. Braun's their best player, Wright's the best player. A natural course is to hit the best player on the other team. That would be David Wright. Terry Collins said, not now, because we don't play these guys till September. And you know, hopefully by then, all things could have calmed down.
Krukey's perspective. Now, our question today, should an MLB manager pull a star he feels will be intentionally hit by a pitch? You can post your thoughts on Twitter with the most appropriate hashtag, tag MLB Plunk. That's MLB Plunk is the hashtag. The code, Terry Collins. Let's say hello to ESPN MLB insider Tim Kirkjian. Our MLB analyst Doug Glanville is back with us today, a veteran of some 9 Major League seasons. Adam Rubin covers the Met beat for ESPNNewYork.com. And Leo Mazzoni knows just a little bit about pitching. 16 years as the Atlanta Braves pitching coach, where he coached 4 ERA title winners, 6 Cy Young Award winners, and 9 20 victory seasons out of his pitching staffs in Atlanta. Adam, take us to the post game. Help us read the tea leaves and what we didn't hear folks say last night. How'd this all go down last night afterwards?
Well, I mean, John Kruk framed it absolutely perfectly. And the bottom line is that David, after the game, said in the clip, and he said to us as well, that he doesn't begrudge, in retrospect, when things calm down, what Terry Collins did. But in the heat of the moment, he was the first batter of the next inning. He didn't expect to be pulled from the game. He wanted to be a leader, and just in the heat of the moment, he reacted visibly in the dugout. David is the most PC player there is, and the most loyal player, too. So he regretted doing it in the dugout where the cameras caught it. But bottom line is that he wanted to be the one to be hit. Actually, the other interesting thing after the game was that he was asked if DJ Carrasco did it on purpose. He said he didn't know, but that would be handled inside the clubhouse. I don't think in the clubhouse they legitimately believe that DJ Carrasco did it by accident, and I don't think Wright, if that were the case, they didn't do it on purpose. I don't think he appreciated having himself exposed to that potential retribution.
In a nutshell, the Collins-Wright relationship is what, good?
It's been very good. Terry, for all the stories you heard in the 90s with the Astros and the Angels and the implosions, he's gone out of his way to be a player's manager here in terms of likability. Carlos Beltran raved about how, when he was here, about how Terry handled him. Terry's done a remarkable job in terms of relationships with players.
Tim, we always love how you point out it's the sport. You can go to the ballpark and see something you've never, ever seen before. You ever seen something like this?
Bob, I've actually seen something similar to this, which speaks to what David Wright did yesterday, his reaction. Years ago, when Dale Murphy played for the Phillies, a former Brave, of course, there was a beanball situation going on, and Tom Glavine had to throw at Dale Murphy because it was the right guy to throw at the right time. Tom Glavine loved Dale Murphy so much that he threw it about 10 feet over his head. Glavine got thrown out of the game immediately. Murphy didn't get hit, of course, and Murphy, the nicest man on the face of the earth, was furious with Glavine for not hitting him with the pitch, because that's the way it works in baseball. You hit one guy, we're going to hit the next guy. And Murphy said, Tom, the next time if this ever comes up, you have to hit me. You don't throw it over my head, you hit me, because that's the way the game is supposed to be played.
Well, Your Honor, we have a material witness here. His name is Leo Mazzoni. What do you remember about that?
Well, I remember Tommy threw a fastball about 40 miles an hour and threw it over. He didn't want to hit Murph. It was his best friend on the team from the before. So he threw a fastball about 40 miles an hour, and he missed Murph, and Tommy got thrown out, and he got off the hook.
All right, let's get to Doug Glanville to the issue of the code and what we saw last night and the way it was handled, because we saw the emotion from David Wright. We heard Adam say David wanted to be the guy hit. Collins, enlightened New Age manager or denier of an ageless code here? Which is it?
Well, no, I mean, look, I understand the spirit of what Collins was trying to do, but I don't agree that it was handled perfectly. I mean, I feel like he takes away Wright's power to be the warrior. I mean, if you have a warrior on your team, you're declaring the guy then why not let him be the guy in the situation where he's supposed to be the warrior? I mean, you know, it's like they're not, you know, odds are he's going to hit him in the back, no big deal, just like you saw with Cole Hamels and Bryce Harper, and nobody got hurt. It's all good, move on. The game would have policed itself, and you turn the page. I mean, just imagine if, you know, Michael Jordan's playing the old school Detroit Pistons, and his head coach goes, you know what? Sit out the fourth because Bill Laimbeer is really tough right now. I mean, you can't imagine taking certain players out of certain situations. And they would have moved on, and the Mets maybe would have rallied behind it if they hit David Wright. So I don't agree with preemptively removing him from what might have happened.
So the code makes sense to you?
Well, it does make sense. You know, playing after a long time, it polices itself. I haven't seen too many incidents where it got completely out of control. I mean, they have baseballs. They don't have weapons. I mean, there was one guy I remember who stood in the parking lot waiting after the game for the guy to shower up because he was still mad 3 days later. But most of the time, it sort of regulates itself, and the players know exactly how to do it. David Wright would have probably leaned in, turned his shoulder, and would have known exactly how to take a hit.
All right, Leo, does the code make sense to you? You hit my guy, I hit yours, and we're going to leave it at that?
Well, let me tell you something. I want to say that in the 16 years I was with the Braves, we always led the league in one category. That was the least amount of hit batsmen. Because we firmly believe that you don't have to drill somebody if you can't get somebody out, or you make a bad pitch and somebody hits a home run. The only time we got into that type of situation was just protecting your own teammates. And if I'm the Mets, I'm going to meet with Carrasco and say, hey, what are you doing? Or if I'm the pitching coach, I'm going to go say, hey, what are you doing? You know, just because you can't you give up a home run, that doesn't mean you drill somebody else. You know, now if you're protecting your teammates or somebody shows you up, that's a different story, and I understand that part of it.
So, Adam, the issue of Carrasco, do you think we will learn in the subsequent day or so exactly what the internal machinations and feelings might be about his motivation and any discipline?
Well, New York reporters are pretty vigilant, so I'm sure they'll try to find out, including myself, what happened behind closed doors. But David said at this point they're pretty much going to handle it behind closed doors. The interesting thing is that Terry Collins was asked when the whole Cole Hamels thing came up if he would ever admit doing something purposely, and he said, of course not. So even though Terry was brutally honest in the post-game press conference with respect to why he took out Wright, with respect to Carrasco's motives, I don't know if he would have been honest anyway, because he wasn't honest. The one thing you have to understand, though, with the Mets is that their success right now is incredibly fragile, and David Wright's hitting .408. They lose him, even if it's a minimal risk, even if the hit was
and he was beamed
the right
3 years ago, right?
Yeah, he was beamed 3 years ago. And the other thing, too, is that he's playing with a broken right pinky. He was already hurt on the base pass once this year, so he's actually having a success despite playing the past month with a healing but still fractured right pinky. He can't afford to get injured. The Mets season would go, I mean, the Mets season may drift off into the sunset anyway at some point, but it would tank right away if David Wright left the lineup.
We take a look at what happened back in, I think, August of 2009 when Matt Cain of the Giants came in, clearly unintentionally, and afterwards Wright had to wear the protective helmet. We've heard a couple of stories about the code and what's happened afterwards. John Kruk, we heard from him earlier from his appearance on Mike and Mike. Krucky's in the center of so many interesting things. Tim, I know you've worked with Krucky. Give a listen to this as we play what happened once when Keith Moreland got a little rambunctious hitting in front of John Kruk.
Keith Moreland hit a home run, and it was like, I don't know, it was 200th, 300th home run. I don't even know what he thought was the historical number, and he did a cartwheel at home plate.
Oh no.
And yeah, and I'm like, what? And it was a bad one. I mean, it was a bad cartwheel. I mean, embarrassingly bad. I mean, it was, you know, I mean, my gosh, I've seen infants in gymnastics class flip over better than that. But and Trevor Wilson was pitching, and I forget who was catching, but I told him, I said, where's this going to hit me? He said, well, I wouldn't dig in too hard. And so I kind of knew that I was, and they did. They threw one up and in and knocked me down. And then, you know, Kurt Manwaring was catching. Kurt said, okay, we took our shot. That's it. Now go to hit.
Tim, you'll appreciate it. We went to the books immediately. Moreland had nowhere near 200 home runs. Next time you can point that out to Krucky when you see him. But how often does it end that quickly in the game? And the guys police themselves and, okay, you got your shot, I got my shot, that's it.
Well, just remember that Ed Farmer, former Major League pitcher, told me this story, that Wayne Gross hit a home run off of him and then took his sweet time getting around the bases, and Ed Farmer was furious. So the next time he faced him, being a reliever, was 3 years later, and now he's his teammate, and he's in batting practice in spring training. The next time he faces him, he hit him right in the middle of the back. And Wade Gross looks at Ed Farmer and goes, "What was that for?" And he goes, "That was for 3 years ago." And Wade Gross said, "Okay, we're even." That's how far they take it. 3 years later, as teammates, he had to hit him still.
Doug, this bubbles up occasionally. Sometimes it gets truly ugly because the benches might clear, and it might get even beyond that. But more often than not, you'll get the warning or the ejection, and then we just move on. In the last decade or so, how would you assess the job that baseball has done in dealing with this situation and feelings like this?
Well, they've been careful, and they're trying to make sure they understand that you have to let these guys play. You can't put them in a glass box. I mean, they have long memories, and you have to have some level of trust that you can police it responsibly on the field. Most of the times, it works out fine. I mean, look at Omar Vizquel. He writes a book. Jose Mesa gets mad at him, and I was on a team with Jose Mesa, and the guy hit him 3-4 times in a row. He said he was counting to 10. So he was going to get him no matter what. So, there's going to be some reality. And look, most of these pitchers, I mean, Zach Greinke could hit a gnat on the top of a screen. So he probably would have hit him in the middle of the bat in the number 5. The Mets might have gotten fired up, and maybe they go on a 10-game winning streak. I mean, most of the time it doesn't end so badly that someone's permanently injured. And I think you just have to be very careful with being too cautious about it.
Well, we had the disarming candor from Cole Hamels about hitting Bryce of the Nats, and of course that led to a 5-game suspension. Candor last night, Adam Rubin from Terry Collins, in explaining why he did what he did, and also saying flat out, Jordani Valdespin, who the next guy, he's not going to get hit. Anyone asked him last night how he feels about it, essentially being said, "You're not big enough for us to throw at you"?
Well, I mean, I think you guys alluded to earlier that basically Mets hit Ryan Braun. The retribution's got to do with the star. And it's funny, David Wright got all the publicity, and that was the incident in the dugout. But Daniel Murphy, who was also due up later that inning, also got pulled from the game. So it was not just David Wright. I guess Terry Collins showed who he thought his most valuable players were because he pulled Wright and Murphy. And actually, on another subject, too, if I may, I got one better than Tim Kirchin. If you remember Roger Clemens and the whole Piazza thing in 2000 with in season and then the World Series, it took years later for the Mets finally to throw at Clemens at Shea Stadium when he finally pitched here. And it was Sean Estes who threw behind Clemens and missed him. And Sean Estes wasn't even on the team in 2000.
Yep.
Memories. Leo, what are the conversations like in the bullpen when stuff like this goes down? The first guy gets hit, first guy goes deep, and you can almost feel it unfolding.
Yeah, you can feel it unfolding. Number one, I don't think Cole Hamels was right with what he did to Harper either. Because here's a player that hustles all the time. He's got a little bit of cockiness to him, and I like him. And I think Harper does nothing that it's unfortunate that closers can't come to hit. So when you see closers act like idiots in a game and point up to the sky and go nuts when they save a game, I think that's one that should get drilled. But anyway, you have these conversations, over a period of time. But Bobby Cox told me one thing one time. He said, "Leo, as a pitching coach, you're never to tell any pitcher to hit somebody." He said that comes from the manager and the manager only. And we very seldom had any type of problems with anything like that because we were always very professional and always handled it the right way. Now, there were instances, I remember one time Galarraga got hit twice and Walt Weiss got hit twice. We were playing an interleague game against Tampa, and Maddox goes, "Is it time, Walter?" And Walt Weiss said, "Yeah, Mad Dog, it's time." So Maddox told me, he said, "I'm hitting the first guy." And I said, "Look, the score's 2-1. Can you hit the third guy, get the first 2 guys out?" And hit the third guy. Anyway, so the first guy up is Jose Canseco. So he hits Canseco in the kneecap and goes to first base. He gets the next guy to hit into a double play and gets the next guy out. But anyway, he comes into the dugout and his hands are shaking. I said, "What's wrong with you?" He goes, "That guy could have killed me. My golly, he could have broke me in 2. And Chipper said, "Oh, I would have got there." He said, "He would have ran right through you." And Brian Jordan comes in from right field. He says, "Mad Dog, I got to hand it to you. You picked the biggest son of a gun in all of baseball to drill." He said, "My hat's off to you." But what I'm saying is that was only because 3 of our guys got hit, and that's a conversation that you might hear between a pitcher and a regular player. As a pitching coach down in the pen, you don't have those conversations with them or on the bench because Bobby Cox made it clear to me that comes from the manager and the manager only. And like I said, we were very proud of the fact that we didn't retaliate to hitting somebody if we couldn't get somebody out.
Doug, what's a dugout like when it starts to percolate? Oh, wait, he got hit. What's going to happen now?
No, well, you can feel it. You can feel it rising, the temperature rising in there. I mean, and we played Braves many times, and they beat us down for decades. But, you know, you always wanted to know that someone had your back. I mean, look at what Zimmerman did. That helps Bryce Harper. It's like, okay, welcome to the league. We got your back. I'm not saying there's not a Neanderthal aspect to it, but the fact is that helps Bryce Harper and his team rally behind him. That's what he took away from David Wright. And that's something that I think should be looked at. And as you mentioned, the other players, there's other players on the team. Oh, you're going to pick and choose who you're going to put in the glass box, and you're going to ignore the pinch hitter? I mean, why is he not as important? So, you know, yeah, there's reality on the ground, but once you start getting into this protection, paternalistic mode, it's a slippery slope, and it's hard to recover it, and that's a danger of what could happen in the Mets locker room.
And Tim, as Leo made the point, what better old-school, code-friendly payback than Bryce Harper stealing home?
I love it.
Yep.
Absolutely. And to support Leo on this, Earl Weaver used to tell me that he told his pitchers, don't you ever throw at anybody, because if you do, you might get ejected, or we might have a fight, and our guys are going to get hurt, and theirs are going to get hurt, and our guys are better than their guys, so we're going to lose in that exchange. So don't hit anybody. Don't get thrown out, because you're hurting the team when you do that. But not every pitcher is going to listen to the manager. Remember Stan Williams from a million years ago, the relief pitcher who hit a lot of people? He used to carry a list around in his hat. And somebody said, what's that list? And he said, these are the guys I got to get. And they said, well, why do you keep it in your hat? He said, so I don't forget. That's the mentality of some pitchers out there.
They got a list, and he's checking it twice, plus an Earl Weaver story, so the day ends on a great note. Guys, thanks so much. Leo Mazzoni, Adam Rubin, thanks so much. Always great to hear from you guys. Tim Kirkshin, thanks so much. Doug Glanville, we'll look for you on Baseball Tonight, gentlemen.